I
Last
never
time
did
they
that
did,
because
yes,
I
but
called him.
they just didn't turn it in.
Wear it well.
Tonight they have this
That's like the afterthought.
I
There was a
do?
reason I sent you.
I just said wear it well.
Well, let
no
me
one
search.
else
What's
was,
your,
No,
what is
no,
it?
no,
Just,
no.
no, I have
Yeah.
no clue.
It's
Just see here.
He's not here.
About ready to start here. I can see him starting to get
All right,
serious.
whatever.
Probably sleeping.
got no wires, that's what it is.
At every opportunity.
I've gotten nothing when you only, I was searching Dora.
Yes, I know.
All these,
I'm just a CC and something else.
Really,
nothing.
It was long.
I appreciate
It's
that.
July.
Okay.
That
Being
was
a girl, I like compliments.
How are you doing?
I mean,
never ignoring your.
did you walk in? I did.
Yeah.
Did you get rained on?
No, because I brought my umbrella. I warded it off.
All right, the September meeting of the Grand Traverse County Parks and Rec Commission is called to order. Marilyn, could you please call the roll?
Bob Karstens,
Here.
also, oh, no, sorry.
He's not
Peter
here.
Doran,
Here?
Bill Dwyer,
Here?
Al Larson,
Here.
Harry Leipzig,
Here.
I'm sorry, Leipzig, pronounce it. Rebecca Cass,
Here.
Chris Maxbauer.
Here.
Dave Taylor,
Here.
Evan McGallier asked to be excused.
All right, first public comment period is open. Mr. Cooney, do you have? Oh, great. All right. I'll entertain any additions to the agenda at this time. All right, hearing none. Additionally, we have no special orders of business tonight. Action on the consent calendar is next. Action, like always, we attempt to approve all these through a single motion. In the receive and file is the 2011 budget report, performance measures, Parks Commission meeting per diem sheets, and approvals of the regular meeting from August and the special meeting from September 1st. Is there any commissioner that would like to remove an item from the consent calendar? All right. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So move.
Support?
Moved by Leapsight and supported by Doran. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, under the director's report, been briefed on all these items by Jason. I thought the report was complete. Is there anyone that would like to discuss the first two items on the director's report, which included a brief follow-up from the budget and then the strategic plan, work plan? All right. Next item, then, item number 3 in the director's report is a verbal report about the free pool hours. Kim?
Yeah, Jason assigned me with the task of assigning 6 days in the next year for free swimming, or free to the public to come and swim. So I've gone ahead already and picked 3 of those dates. The first one I chose was October 28th. I picked that date because that's the night of our Flick and Float and the night of our Trunk or Treat. So that way people will already be there, kind of in the building. We can get them in, let them do a Flick and Float for free, see what it's like, and hopefully encourage them to come back in November and December for the next ones. The next date I picked was Saturday, November 26th, and that date I chose, it's Thanksgiving weekend. So I thought it would be good to show the public that we are open, even on holidays, because I know in the past, when it was a holiday like that, they would be closed the whole weekend, but that'll help get people in, show them, that there's another place where they can have fun family activities. The other date I'm looking at, I'm not totally set on it yet, but I'm looking at Tuesday, January 10th of 2012, and offering all of the programs that day for free to hit on the New Year's resolution people coming through, so they can try lap swims, they can try water aerobics, all of those kinds of programs. So kind of loop them in that way. I don't really have an aquatic manager's report, but I wanted to announce something, if that's all right. Can I do that here? Because it
Yeah, any questions on
sort
the
of
free
ties
pool
in.
days? Okay, go ahead.
The next thing with the pool is I've hired Kathy Coffin-Sheard, and she was a collegiate level swimmer, pretty high up in the ranks. She is coaching right now the high school swimming team, the West and Central's girls swim team. She's an assistant coach. She's also helping out with the Traverse City Breakers. And she has been a master's coach in the past and has coached at University of Georgia. And I have brought her on. We are going to do a lunch bunch. And we're going to provide a noontime laps. Well, it'll be in with that lap swim. And she's going to come and be there for coaching. She'll give workouts, she'll give techniques, she'll give any kind of help anyone's looking for during that 12 to 1 o'clock hour, Monday through Thursday. And this will be at no charge to anyone with a membership. So anyone that comes in and does the drop-in, they won't be able to access Kathy's expertise. So we're trying to add some membership benefits and hopefully maybe kind of start a little bit more of a master's team. Most places downstate and other communities have full-on master's teams that will go and compete, and maybe with Kathy's excitement we can kind of get the ball rolling on that. So that's kind of where we're starting with that. So
I understand Kathy's been hired as a lifeguard, and then
she's hired as a lifeguard and swim instructor, yeah. But I'll be using her for that lunch bunch group.
Okay. Commissioner Maxmeyer?
Well, I just want to say, I noticed when I was over there today that there was a sign up showing that normally the breakers swim from 4 to 6, and there was a sign showing, September 13th, September 20th, there's, you
for
can
the high
swim
school
from,
girls.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
high school girls, I'm sorry. You can swim from 4 to 6, and I just want to say thank you, because I know people will see that and they will take advantage of it. And it's the first time I've seen it, and I noticed it, and thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, any other comments on Kim's remarks? All right, continuing down the director's report then, any questions or comments on changes in pool memberships? Jason's project list, the DNRE document, and then the show lease amendments and user agreements. Mr. Cooney has come to our meeting to address that. Mr. Cooney?
Good evening, Bob Cooney, Deputy Civil Counsel. And unfortunately, I don't have a lot to show you tonight, but what I was tasked with doing, and I know there was at least one commissioner I spoke with that didn't know that I was working on this, but I was tasked with coming up with some sort of uniform user agreements for all the different groups that use the Civic Center and the other park facilities that we lease out, either long-term or short-term. And the idea there was to create some more consistency between what we're requiring some users to do and not others. You may have noticed yourself that we have some user groups that have very lengthy agreements with the Parks Commission, and then there are others that seem to be similarly situated that have no agreement at all. And so the idea was to create some consistency and a measure of fairness while at the same time protecting the county's interest when it comes to leasing our facilities. And that's certainly something that I support, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think it's just something that over time we've neglected to come up with agreements for some groups. And there are other agreements that, there may be more stringent requirements than we really need to have. Anyway, I was hoping to have those agreements for you to review tonight. We don't have those. But what I thought I would do is, since at least one of the commissioners was unfamiliar with this concept anyway, I thought I would just very briefly lay out the idea here that was come up, that I think Al and Jason essentially come up with 3 different types of user groups that we have, and that we'd have different agreements to use with each of those groups. And the first of those are what we're calling the management groups. That would be T-Bays or ICE, where you have a long-term user that basically schedules its own time. They pretty much have taken over the facilities the way T-Bays has. Those agreements are not going to be real standardized because they're just unique circumstances in cases like those where they're not going to be cookie-cutter contracts, but they should be similar in terms of the requirements that the county is looking for based on the types of programs. If it's a similar type of program, requirements for liability insurance, and that should be similar. This is not meant to be an exercise in trying to go back and renegotiate the contracts that we already have in place with the ICE and T-Base groups. Those are long-term agreements. T-Base, I think, goes out until the next decade even. So we're not necessarily going to talk about going back and revisiting those agreements, although I suppose, maybe that would be something that if the other parties were agreeable and it made sense for them, we could do that. The second group we're calling the steward groups, and those are regular users like YMCA softball, TBA swim program, the Breakers, those folks who regularly use our facilities from year to year. And the third group would be individuals and short-term and groups that use the facilities on a short-term basis, and those would be the hobby show, for example, renting a pavilion, renting the swimming pool for birthday parties, those types of users. And again, it's fairly arbitrary whether those people are currently being required to sign a user agreement or not. And so we'd like to standardize that. So again, I think the idea arose out of a feeling that there was some inequity going on. The goal is to create some consistency among the different user groups, and hopefully I can be back with you in either October or November with some sample agreements so that you can review those, see if you agree with the terms that we've come up with, see whether you like the concept, and then it'll be up to you to decide whether or not to approve those as our standard forms. And that's it, unless any of you have questions.
Commissioner Doran.
Bob, that's great. I think it's a great idea. I would strongly urge you to consider including a provision in those agreements where the public is invited or it's open to the public, not family gatherings, but it's open to the public, that when we give our public land for those type of activities to a private entity, there should be a mechanism for complaints by members of the public who use that, who feel that they have been harmed in some way or not treated fairly. And the county shouldn't be involved in I don't think the county should be involved in the resolution of those disputes. We should just know that there's a place where those people can go and vent their issues that they might have with the organization that was overall sponsoring the event, and let that organization handle it. We don't want to get involved in the handling of it. But we should assure the public that if they're going to be on the public property and something happens, they got a place to go to make their complaints or comments known.
Okay.
All right, thanks very much for coming to the meeting, Bob, and thanks for working on this project on our behalf.
Thank you.
All right, next item of business is listed as 2012 Parks and Rec Commission Strategic Plan. My apologies for this one. When I planned the meeting and the agenda back in the early part of the month, we were counting on some information to come from what's in the director's report about the North Sky grant application that is ongoing. I thought I'd have information for you on the details of how we might consider going forward with building the plans. We talked, or at the August meeting, we approved moving up the priority for Twin Lakes and the Civic Center, I believe, on the business plans, and we were going to have a mechanism for that, but there was some coordination in another organization that isn't complete yet, so I don't have anything for that. With Jason's absence, I was attempting to keep the agenda relatively small, and I perhaps have overdone it a bit here. But I doubt everyone will be deeply disappointed by that. So I have nothing on item number 1. Item number 2 is roll call vote, bylaw change. Commissioner Maxbauer.
Yes. On every other board that I'm involved in, we have, in our board rules, a way that we call roll call. And I provided everyone, and I'm sorry, I did ask for it to be included in the packet, but it was not, but it is on your desk, a copy of the section of our county board rules where we do not take votes the same way every time. Now, I will say that according to Robert's rules, when you do not have rules in your board rules, you take roll call, you take your roll call vote alphabetically with the president or chair as the last vote called. So in that respect, when Marilyn calls the vote, and she does it alphabetically, that is absolutely correct. But on every other board I'm at, be it Garfield, be it the county board, Commission on Aging, we don't do it that way. There's always a variety, be it, and as you can see, we have 4 lists at the county board, and it spells them out. One is alphabetical order, one's reverse, one's by district number, and the other's by reverse district number. They're done randomly, and then roll call votes are done after that. The first person is then the last person called. I think it's a better way to do roll call votes, and what I'm proposing, and you know, whether the commission agrees or not, that's fine, but what I'm proposing is that we change our bylaws to have a variety of roll call votes, not the same way every time.
Do you have a motion with that, Commissioner Maxbauer?
Yes, I would move to change the Parks and Rec bylaws to, how do I say this? To pattern the county board rules. And
Would that be alphabetical and reversed alphabetical?
alphabetical, reverse alphabetical. We could do it, you know, by district. I mean, some of us are in the same district. Some of, whatever.
I'll support that if it's just the introduction. I mean, don't we have to have 2 meetings to do the bylaws?
Yeah, and it is. It's
And in the interim, that Bob draft this up in a format that's,
and he's going, oh, boy.
that melds into our existing bylaws?
That would be
Because this is
great.
County Board of Commissioners.
That would be wonderful.
Actually, I would just copy what was in the county board rules. Should be simple.
The district one,
Yeah.
that confused, it doesn't just, we aren't each from a different district, so that, using that particular one doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me.
All right, so the motion, as I understand it, is to change the
Let's-
Park and Rec bylaws to,
Can I change it just a little? To have not a set pattern of voting and ask for a recommendation from Mr. Cooney? How does that sound?
Okay.
It's okay with me.
I'll come up with something and we can vote at the next meeting. I'm not sure that we need to have 2 meetings.
No?
I think we can adopt it at the
Okay. All right, why don't we just refer it to Bob then and have it come back and have it put
I
into a
can withdraw
format?
my motion and just refer it to Bob. That would be
Okay,
great.
I'll support that.
I'll second.
okay. All right, so moved by Maxbauer and seconded by Doran to refer the matter of changing the bylaws to incorporate random voting to Mr. Cooney. Was that acceptable wording?
Absolutely.
For
It's fine.
passing it off to Bob? All right, any discussion then on the motion?
This doesn't eliminate the voice vote, though, does it? I mean,
No.
you don't have to take a roll call vote every time.
No.
Okay.
All right, so the motion is essentially to change our Park and Rec bylaws to incorporate random voting for roll call votes and to refer that to Bob Cooney. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, next item is the Twin Lakes DHS camp licensing. Commissioner Maxbauer.
All right, and I would ask Mr. Cooney to feel free to step up to the microphone because he's going to weigh in on this. At, I believe, our July Parks and Rec meeting, our director, when asked about the closing of Twin Lakes Park to the public, said it was state law that he had to do so. So I emailed Jason and I said, can I see a copy of the state law? And he forwarded it to me, and I read it, and I didn't see it in there. We have, for the members of the public, we have campers that come to Twin Lakes, and our habit has been to close Twin Lakes Park to the public whenever we have campers there, be it day campers or overnight campers. And I wanted to see the state law. It's not in there. At least I didn't see it. So I asked for a meeting with Mr. Cooney, and Commissioner Leapsight was kind enough to accompany me to the meeting. And I asked Mr. Cooney, I emailed him the law, and I said, I don't see it in there, do you? And Mr. Cooney, I will let you take it from there.
Yes, Bob Cooney again, Deputy Civil Counsel. And I have been asked by a couple of commissioners about this, and I've also spoken with Jason Jones about it. And I spoke to Al Larson earlier today about this, and I've also reviewed the letter that Jason prepared, dated September 15th. And I also spoke with Stephen Seeger from DHS, who was in charge of licensing, about the issue. And, you know, I generally agree with everything that Jason has said about the law anyway in this letter from September 15th, except there is one section, the second paragraph.
I don't think, Mr. Cooney, I don't think, not sure that everybody has that letter in possession. So.
Oh, okay. Essentially, what Jason is saying is no state law does not require that the parks be closed during youth camps. And that's accurate. The requirement that persons who are supervising youth receive a clearance from DHS does not mean that the public or anyone who hasn't received a clearance from DHS cannot have contact with other youth. And when I talked to Steve Seeger about this, he agreed with me about that. He agreed that the law does not prohibit this contact between the public and youth campers. At the same time, you know, we both agreed perhaps the best way to protect youth campers would be to simply close a camp to the public. I mean, you can't argue with that. That would be the best way to keep only people with clearances and who are in a supervisory position to be in contact with those campers. But certainly the law doesn't require it. And when I asked Steve, you know, I told him this didn't really fit with my experience with how other camps are run. I'm familiar with the Boy Scout organization, for example, and Camp Dry Lake. And I know that, you know, there are limited opportunities when the public is in contact with youth campers there. And Steve cited several examples. For example, Lake Ann Camp and the YMCA youth camps that go on. They do not have, they do not close to the public. So I was surprised. I don't doubt that Steve said this because he sent an email similar to this to Jason, essentially saying that the best way to keep youth safe is to close Twin Lakes to the public during these camps, and that would be created to, or if you don't, then what they would expect is that there would be an absolute boundary created by the Parks and Recreation Commission between the campers and the general public. And, you know, I don't doubt that Steve said that, but, you know, I don't know, maybe it's taken out of context because it doesn't really fit with the conversation I had with Steve. It does kind of fit with his past email to Jason. And so, you know, the bottom line was I asked Steve if Twin Lakes left it up to the camp program to assure the safety of youth. And there are requirements for camps to have a certain number of adults in charge of a certain number of youth and other types of safety precautions. Would DHS deny a license, either to a site license to the Parks Commission to allow the camp at Twin Lakes, or would it deny a program permit to the camp if the park is open to the public? And Steve assured me that that would not happen. And again, he cited the examples of the YMCA camp and the Lake Ann, which most of the time those are exclusive use camps, but apparently there's at least one camp or a few camps during the year that the public is welcome there. So I guess the bottom line here is that the state law does not require that the Parks Commission close Twin Lakes to the public during camps. At the same time, there's nothing in state law that would require that the Parks Commission keep it open. And so my primary concern here is that I think that this is a Parks Commission policy decision. It's up to you whether you think it is a good idea to give the camps exclusive use of the parks, whether you think there's some unfairness to the public because we're closing off the entire park for these camps. I think it's a policy decision, and I think the concerns about what state law requires or doesn't require are perhaps perhaps a little bit overstated by DHS.
Commissioner Max Bauer?
And one of the reasons that I brought this to the Parks Commission was when the county board did their survey, we had one comment, and it was just one, saying, you know, I don't want to give the Parks Department any of our tax money because I can't use Twin Lakes. You know, whenever I go to use it, it's closed. And I did receive a phone call, one phone call, just one, complaining from a member of the public in Long Lake Township that, you know, we only have about 8 weeks of summer where you can go and use Twin Lakes, you know, and he was complaining because it's closed when he wants to use it. And so that was kind of what started me on this information request. So I wanted, the other thing that dawns on me is we have a day camp at Howe Arena on the Civic Center. Can you imagine the outrage of the public if we close the Civic Center because we have a day camp there? And in effect, that's what we do at Twin Lakes. I just want it brought to the Parks Commission for discussion so that we can set a policy as to whether or not we are going to allow members of the public to use a public park when we have camps there. The other thing that concerned me as I was reading what Jason gave me on the DHS rules, the DHS law, and I have it in front of me, was what we are required to do, especially under aquatic procedures. And we are not fulfilling some of our requirements. For instance, if we have swimming in a swimming area, yes, it has to be marked, and I do know Jason does put out buoys to mark the swimming area whenever we have a camp in progress. The county administrator, Dennis Aloya, told me that he does that every single time. But what we do not have are some of the safety equipment that is required. And I did ask Mr. Cooney in our meeting, I said, you know, what is our responsibility? And he said, you know, now that we know that this stuff is not there, we have to put it there.
Safety equipment for when the camps are out?
Yes. We need a backboard with
We
a
have
minimum
one.
of 3 straps.
We have that.
A first aid kit, a
We have
rescue
that.
tube,
We have that.
a whistle,
We have that.
a throwing advice.
Yep.
We have all
We-
of that.
The lifeguards, there's a shed up, I don't know the property really well, but up on the other side of the dormitory, there's a lifeguard shed, and each day the lifeguards carry down all of the equipment while they're there to guard for the camps, and when they're done, they carry it back up.
Okay,
And
so...
the camps are only allowed to swim when the lifeguards are present.
Now, see, I was there when we had a camp, and it was closed to the public. I put my badge on and I went. None of that stuff was there, just to let you know. And that's why I questioned it. I mean, it was not out on the beach. I mean, there was nothing. But if it's there,
It is there.
that's
It's
fine.
all in the shed.
That's
and
fine.
We sent guards out there several times this summer for, I think, what, 3 weeks, Marilyn? 4
No,
weeks?
I guess if the
Where there
camp
were
chooses
camps,
to
and
use it or
that's-
not, that's up to them. But I did not see it, and I was there.
Yeah.
But in any event, the policy thing, I think we need to address.
Commissioner Doran?
Yeah, on the first issue about whether to keep it open to the public, sounds like a fairly good idea to me. I did have some friends who went out there to look at it for a venue for a wedding. Couldn't get in, so went someplace else. But I think we should have a director's recommendation, you know, on that before we take any action. So perhaps, Mr. President, the appropriate thing to do is just refer that to Jason to come back with a recommendation regarding modifying the procedure for Twin Lakes to allow it to be open on some basis to the public while camps are in session.
Commissioner Cass?
You know what, it's irrelevant at this point, so.
Okay. I did speak with Jason at length about this, and he gave me a few recommendations that I could consider, so I'll make a motion at this point. Then the groups that rent Twin Lakes can pay an additional premium of $300 per day to ensure that they have exclusive use of all Twin Lakes facilities, including the beach area, closing the park to the public. I have more on that when we get to the discussion, if there's a second for that.
I'd kind of like Jason here for that discussion.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Okay.
What you just suggested is exactly what I was wondering when we do charge. If the expectation is like that they get to use the volleyball portion of it, and they're playing volleyball, or they haven't gotten out there yet, and then a citizen group comes in and begins to use it, so that the people who paid to use the park, it's not available to them, that's a difficult situation.
If you'll allow me the freedom to continue the discussion without a motion.
Well, I'll support for purpose of discussion.
Okay. My opinion on this is that groups come to Twin Lakes with a number of different objectives in mind. Some of them just want a meeting room, and some of them want a meeting room where they can stay overnight, and so they're using the dorms, and so there are different strokes for different folks, so to speak. Some of them don't care if the public's there. That doesn't affect them at all. Some of them care very much. And so since Bob has said that it's it's a policy issue, then we can clarify that. So the groups that want exclusive use of the park, thereby they want to use everything with nobody else bothering them or affecting their safety or whatever their issues are, then they can pay a premium to rent, and I'm not saying an unreasonable premium, just they can pay more to rent the entire park. And if they don't need that, then we can keep the park open to the public. One of the things that makes Twin Lakes attractive compared to, for instance, if you just need a big meeting room to have a retreat or something like that, you can go to a hotel, and you can do that, and you don't need to close off the hotel for the rest of the public to do that. But maybe your retreat, you need a place that you can have, you can be sequestered, you can have a complete privacy, and so you would need a different facility to do that. Twin Lakes offers that option that some of the other facilities in the area don't offer, and that's probably a good thing for our marketing or business plan that doesn't exist yet, to offer something that isn't offered elsewhere, exclusive use of a compound that's private and sequestered from the rest of the public. Not everybody needs that. Sometimes it's going to be about children, where you need your children to be protected. Sometimes it may be something like, say, it's a cheerleading camp, and the head of the cheerleading camp doesn't want, on the third day, all the local high school boys coming down there to play football with their shirts off because they want to get something done. So it doesn't have to be about safety. It can just be about, do you need exclusive use? If they need exclusive use, that's fine. We can offer that. We can offer that for an additional fee that keeps the public out. It's a business choice by us. Last year, there were 12 days when the park was closed. 8 of those days were sort of a 9 to 5 type scenario, and then it was open later, and 4 of those days were 24 hours overnight, 4 days in a row, so almost an entire week where the park was closed. That's sort of the order of magnitude of what we're talking about at this point. Of course, things may change depending upon what we do with marketing. Commissioner Doran.
I think that it is a balancing of the needs. You've expressed a way to accommodate the needs of the user group by paying more money, but there's another group, and that's the public. And I'm not prepared at this time to understand or vote on something because I'm not aware of exactly what the needs of the public are towards the Twin Lakes. And perhaps they can be accommodated in a way that you designed, but I'm just not ready to do that now. I want to consider more the needs of the public and the needs of the user groups and try to strike a balance.
Okay, Commissioner Max Bauer?
Well, while I've supported the motion for discussion, I will not be voting in favor of the motion. I did bring this to the county board, and I've heard from several county board members who believe strongly that this is a public park, it's paid for by the public, and to close it unnecessarily when we don't have to is not the right avenue to take. And although my mind certainly could be changed if the director comes and makes a good argument for why we should do that. But right now, I don't see a reason to, so I will be voting no on this motion.
Commissioner Karstens.
I heard Commissioner Max Bauer say, to close it when we don't have to. I've heard arguments saying that we should make our parks more profitable, and so are you saying that anytime they rent it out, I don't understand that have to. What are the conditions when they would have to or not?
Well, what I'm saying is we don't have to. It is not state law.
Okay.
That's
okay.
what that's
not in terms of policy, but state law, right?
Yeah. And if we don't have to close the park to the public, then why would we? We certainly don't close the Civic Center to the public when we have day camp, yet we do at Twin Lakes. And if there's a reason. The director is not here this evening, right. And, if there's a reason, I'm certainly willing to listen to it, but right now I don't know that there is.
The other question I have is behind the overnight facility for groups and the meeting house, there's extensive trails, and I wonder if there's any way people can access those trails by parking someplace besides in the parking areas that are there for the users of the barracks or whatever you want, the overnight house, and the meeting house.
There are some entrances to the trail system at other places that are not within the Twin Lakes
Okay.
Park. Commissioner Cass first.
Thank you. Well, what Peter said about, wondering what the public wants, you also have to ask what these groups that rent the space want. I mean, if they all of a sudden have people, coming into the Twin Lakes camp and they're used to having it exclusively, I mean, you run the risk of running those groups out because that is, so I think it's something that we really need to get the opinion from those user groups as well.
Commissioner Max Bauer?
One of the things that Commissioner Wheelock pointed out was most people think of Twin Lakes as that 4-acre section. It's not. It's 175 acres. And when we close the park, we're closing 175 acres. And I just really strongly feel that we need to take a look at that. But again, I will wait to hear from the director.
Commissioner Liebzeit?
Well, I feel that we've got a security problem out there due to the size of the area and everything like that. And if we're going to have somebody there 24 hours a day, is that going to be our personnel, or is that going to be part of this process of the people that rent it? Are they going to take and supply that security? And if somebody came in there, what are we going to do about removing them or advising them or telling them? Because the only thing that I see is some kind of a thing in the driveway blocking access of a vehicle, that somebody could get on a bicycle or somebody could walk in from a different area. I think I would like to hear from our director on that matter, see what thoughts and things before I even move on it.
Okay. Commissioner Cass?
It's irrelevant.
All right. Anybody else?
I'll move to refer it to the next meeting.
I'd like to withdraw the motion at this point, if that's all
I'll
right.
withdraw my support.
Yeah. All right. Motion withdrawn. Commissioner Max Bauer.
I do have a point. Mr. Cooney, when you are looking at our user agreements, as I stated, when I was out there and it was an evening and the park was closed to the public, there was no safety equipment out there. And if we're renting Twin Lakes and it's required by state law that they have the safety equipment there, you might, just a thought, it's certainly up to you, you might want to think about putting in our user agreement that if you rent that and you're using the aquatic portion of the park, that you must have safety equipment out there. I just think that might be something you would want to put in a user agreement.
You mean place it on the user, such as
Yes.
someone with a camping
Yes,
permit?
yes, put it
Or
on,
a
put
program
that
permit.
responsibility on the user. I mean, if the safety equipment's out there, they weren't using it. It was not there. Swimmers were in the water, and the safety equipment was not there.
Okay, I'll consider that, yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else on this issue? All right. Second public comment section. All right. Continuing on, notices and commissioner comments. Anyone? Commissioner Doran.
Congratulations should be in order for Mr. and Mrs. Jones on their new baby, Scarlett. So best of wishes to those guys.
Good. Commissioner Max Bauer.
I want to take this opportunity to talk briefly about Dr. Arnold Saria and what he meant to Parks and Recreation in this community for as many years as I can remember. Doc Saria passed away August 29th. And without Doc Saria, cross-country skiing would not be what it is in Grand Traverse County. Doc Saria and Wojenbayek went over and bought hundreds of pairs of cross-country skis at their own expense and brought them back and gave them away to kids to start them on cross-country skiing. Many years ago, when Easling Pool was in financial trouble, and it was in the transition period when the city and was giving up the pool and the county was taking it over, Doc Saria got 9 of his closest friends, and I hope he would forgive me for revealing this, to agree to pledge $10,000 apiece for 3 years to keep Easling Pool open and available to kids. Doc Saria built the Glacier Dome, and for those of us who have lived here all of our lives, or at least a lengthy amount of time, we all know that without Doc Saria, hockey would not be what it is in Grand Traverse County. He built Glacier Dome at his own expense. He put 10 years of his life into that. He gave away skates to kids. He did more for recreation and for children in this county than anyone I've known. And I just want to say that, this county is certainly better off and blessed to have had him here. Thank you.
All right, any other commissioner comments? All right, very good. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support?
Moved by Doran, supported by Max Bauer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned.
Tigers in that.